Okay, Rabbi Isai, we saw yesterday, the Mishnah was the last thing that we learned in yesterday's daf, which basically tells us the basic distinction between chutz lizmano and chutz limakomo. Chutz lizmano is when a person has a machshava, a thought of consumption in the improper time, and chutz limakomo is when a person has a thought of consumption at the improper place, at the wrong place. And when I say the word consumption, it means either human consumption or alter consumption of some portion of the animal. Okay? The difference between the two is that chutz lizmano is called traditionally pigul, and if a person were to eat a kezayis of the meat of a pigul animal, meaning that the thought had been applied to that animal, he would get kares. But there is no kares punishment at all attached to a chutz limakomo machshava. In the course of our discussion in this Mishnah, the Mishnah had pointed out that the thought of eating a kezayis of basar, either chutz lizman or chutz limakomo, includes even the bottom side of the skin of the tail, or the skin of the bottom side of the tail of the animal, because that's considered to be edible, even though most of the hide of a sheep, for example, is not edible. But the bottom side of its tail has very tender skin, which could be cooked and eaten. And so therefore that's considered to be basar, that's consumable as well. So that leads us to the following discussion. Sevaruha, the very bottom line of Chav Zayin Amud Beis, or aliyah ka'aliyah dami. So the thinking of, at this point, the simple understanding is that the skin of a tail is no different from the tail itself. Just like the tail is a consumable item, so is its skin. But the problem is, there is a machlokus that will be detailed later on, talking about the idea of if I have in mind to eat something that is really meant to be consumed not by humans, but rather by the altar. The tail of an animal, when it's brought as a korban shlomim, the tail of a sheep, is meant to be burnt together with the other entrails on the altar, is not permitted for consumption by humans. So if I'm thinking while I'm having this machshava of pigul or chutz limakomo, that I'm going to be eating a kezayis of the skin of the tail, but that should not count as pigul, because I'm thinking about eating something that I'm not permitted to eat in the first place. It's meant for the altar. And that doesn't fall under the rubric of pigul. It only falls under the rubric of pigul if I'm thinking about eating something that I would normally be supposed to or allowed to eat. So the Gemara answers, Amar Shmuel Hamani Rabbi Eliezer, he da Amar mechashven me'achilas mizbeach la'achilas adam me'achilas adam la'achilas mizbeach. So Shmuel we're going to see three answers to this question today. Shmuel gives us the first answer. Answer number one, says Shmuel, is that there's a difference of opinion. There's a machlokas. Rabbi Eliezer holds that even when I think about eating something that is meant to be consumed by the mizbeach, that is subject to the laws of pigul. Or conversely, if I think about offering something that is meant for human consumption, chutz lizmano, for example, then that also falls under the rubric of pigul. Okay? Ditnan, and here's the Mishnah. Hashochet es hazevach lechol davar she'ein darko lechol lahaktir davar she'ein darko lahaktir kosher v'Rebbi Eliezer posel. As the Mishnah says, that if a person slaughters a sacrifice with the intention to eat something that is not normally eaten, or to offer something on the altar that is not meant to be offered on the altar, so the Chachamim say that that is not a tainted sacrifice, even if I had a machshav of chutz lizman or chutz limakomo, because after all, I'm thinking about eating something that's not meant to be eaten. I'm thinking about offering something that's not meant to be offered. But Rabbi Eliezer posel, but Rabbi Eliezer disagrees, and he says that that is subject to the laws of pigul, and therefore our mission is holding like Rabbi Eliezer. So frak the Gemara b'mayu kimta Rabbi Eliezer. Ema Sefer, you're telling me that our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Eliezer. We'll take a look, in tomorrow's daf. We're going to learn a continuation of this Mishnah. And it says, Zeh ha'klal kol hashochet v'hamakabel v'hamolich v'hazorek Lechol davar shedarko lechol ulahaktir davar shedarko lahaktir. It says explicitly in the next part of this Mishnah that the general rule is that if you do any one of the four avodas of shchita, kabbalah, holacha, or zrika, with a machshava to eat something that is meant to be eaten or to offer something that is meant to be offered, chutz lizman or chutz l'makomo, you've tainted the sacrifice. So, davar shedarko lechol in, shein darko lechol lo, asan l'rabanan. So, it's clear that that statement is according to the Chachamim, who say that the only time that pigul applies is if you're thinking about eating something that's meant to be eaten. So, Reisha Rabbi Eliezer v'Sefer Rabbanan, so what are you going to contrive? That the first part of our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Eliezer, and the second part goes according to the Chachamim. Amar le'in. So Shmuel will tell you yes. Shmuel says, yeah, that's taka how you have to learn. That's the only way I can figure out a solution to this problem about how eating the skin of the tail, which is just like the tail, could fall under the rubric of pigul, even though the tail is meant for the altar and not meant for human consumption.
So what is a case by Rabbi Eliezer of chutz lezman if it's supposed to be burnt up completely on the mizbeach? How can you have a chutz lezman if it's completely consumed on the mizbeach?
Because I say to myself, as I'm shechting this animal or as I'm sprinkling its blood, I'm going to eat the tail, chutz lizmano, on Tuesday.
But when you have a zman, isn't that it's a set time to eat the actual carbon, right?
Yeah, but what you've done is you've stigmatized the flesh of the animal, according to Rabbi Eliezer, so that every portion of the animal, even the portion that's meant to be placed on the altar, has now been tainted with that machshava. Okay? According to the Chachamim, you can only taint the portion that's meant to be eaten. You can't taint the portion that's meant to go on the mizbeach. Okay. Rav Huna Amar, or al yalav ka al yadami. So Rav Huna gives us answer number 2. And he says, you made a mistake. You made an assumption that was incorrect. You assumed that the skin of the tail has the same status as the tail. And therefore your question was predicated on, well, if the tail is meant for the mizbeach, how could it be subject for pigul when I'm thinking about eating it? The answer is that the skin of the tail is different from the tail itself. The tail is meant for the mizbeach, but the skin of the tail is not meant for the mizbeach. It's meant for human consumption. Amar Rava, my time de Rav Huna, chelbo ha'aliyah velo or ha'aliyah. So what's Rav Huna's reasoning, says Rava? Because he looks at the pasuk, and the pasuk talks about the fat of the tail being placed on the mizbeach, and that means to exclude any other portion of the tail, including its skin. Rav Chizda Amar, and here comes now Rav Chizda with the third answer. Third answer to our question is la'olam or ha'aliyah ka'aliyah dami. V'hacha b'mayaskinan ba'aliyah shel gedi. It's almost like a Gordian knot kind of solution, where he says, listen, I can sidestep the problem completely. Your assumption is that we're talking about a sheep whose tail is offered on the altar. But what if the Mishnah was addressing the case of a goat? A goat has a very small tail, and that tail does not go on the altar. You know, if I bring a korban shlamim from a goat instead of a sheep, then I don't bring the tail on the altar, and that's why the tail and its skin are meant for human consumption, because we're talking about a totally different animal. In other words, you're right. If we were talking about a sheep, and I had a machshava about eating the sheep tail or its skin, so then I wouldn't be liable for pigul because I'm thinking about eating something that's meant for the altar. But we're talking about a goat, and a goat's tail and its skin are not meant for the altar, so it's not a problem. So the Gemara now says, Kulu kishmu lo amri, Reisha Rabbi Eliezer v'Sefer Rabbanan lo mukmi. So the Gemara says, okay, we've got 3 answers. We've got Shmuel, who says that our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Eliezer, who says that a thought about eating something that's meant for the altar is still subject to pigul. We've got the answer of Rav Huna, who says that the skin of the tail is not like the tail itself. And we've got the answer of Chizda, says we're talking about a goat. Now let's try to understand. The latter 2 Amoraim don't subscribe to Shmuel for very obvious reasons. Why? Because it's contrived to suggest that the first part of our Mishnah goes like Rabbi Eliezer, and the second part goes like the Chachamim, as we said above. Ki Rav Huna lo amri, or aliyah ka aliyah dami kamashmalahu. And the reason why the other two Amoraim don't subscribe to Rav Huna, who makes a distinction between the skin of the tail and the tail itself, is because they don't agree. They think that the pasuk says nothing about the skin of the tail, and it's presumed that the skin of the tail has the same status as the tail. So if the tail is meant for the altar, the skin is also meant for the altar, so you're not solving anything, Rav Huna. And Kerav Chisda my time alo Amri. So the question is, though, why don't the first two Amoraim hold of Rav Chisda that we're talking about a goat and not a sheep? So the answer is my kamashmalan, or aliyah ka aliyah dami, because their argument is, okay, if we're talking about a goat, so then what's your point? The whole point of the mission is just to tell me that the skin of the tail is edible just like the tail itself. Is that your point? Tanina. But that was already learned in a Mishnah in Maseches Chulin. It says, Ve'elu sha'oroseim kivisaran. The following skin parts of an animal have the same status of the flesh of the animal in that they're edible. Now, it's important to note that the context of this Mishnah is not talking about sacrificial law, but rather it's talking about Tumah and Tahara law. In order for something to contract Tumah and convey Tumah, it has to be an edible food item if it's not a Kli. And therefore, what about skin? Is skin considered to be an edible food item or not, vis-a-vis the laws of Tumah? Okay? So the Mishnah says the following skin areas of an animal's body count as skin. Count as food, rather. Or shetachas ha'alya, the skin that's on the underside of the tail. And so you've already got a Mishnah. So what do you need our Mishnah to point that out? Just to tell me that it's the goat tail skin is a food item? So v'Rav Chisda itzterich sal kadaita chamina hanimila le'inyan tuma derachich mitzdaref aval hacha ema lemashcha legedula kedech shamalachim ochlim v'lo avidi malachim da'achli hachi ema lo kamash malon. So the Gemara answers, Rav Chisda will tell you, no, it's necessary for us to detail this in the laws of Karbanos as well. If I only told you that skin is considered a food item, the tail skin is considered a food item by the laws of Tumah, I might have thought that there's a distinction between what's considered a food item by the laws of Tumah and the laws of Karbanos, because maybe by the laws of Karbanos it has to be a significant edible part of the animal. Because after all, the Torah tells you that when you bring a korban, you are an important person bringing a korban. And perhaps the eating of the korban has to include only food items or food portions of that animal that are considered to be important, like something that a king would eat. And if a king would not eat a portion of an animal, maybe it doesn't count as food item vis-a-vis the laws of Pigel. So Kamash Malan that's not the case. Now Meisvei. Now let's raise a contradiction. Hashochet es ha'ola lahaktir kezayis me'or shetachas ha'aliyah chutz lemekomo pasel ve'in bo kares chutz lismano pigel v'chayaven alav kares. So the Brisa now says, if a person slaughters a korban ola, now what is unique about a korban ola? Someone yell it out. Completely burnt on the altar. So why the Brisa chooses the example of an ola is something that we're going to have to analyze. So a person shechts an animal for a korban ola, but he has a machshava that he's going to be offering a kazayas of the tail skin at the wrong time or at the wrong place. So if it's at the wrong place, it's pasul, but there's no kares. If it's at the wrong time, it's pasul, plus you're subject to kares. And Elazar ben Yehuda ish avlei Amar mishum Reb Yaakov v'chein hayu Reb Shimon ben Yehuda ish kfar ichos Amar mishum Reb Shimon. These rabbis also stated, in detailing what parts of the animal's skin are edible. Echad or beis prasos behema daka. This includes the skin of the shin of a small animal like a goat or a sheep. That's also considered to be edible, I guess because it's very thin, and therefore if you cook it, it's edible. Ve'echad or haroshel egel harach, and also the skin of a young calf. And ve'echad or shetachas ha'aliyah v'chol shetachas ha'aliyah, and also the skin, as we said, that is on the underside of the animal's tail. V'chol shemanu chachamim gabei tuma, ve'ilu she'orosein kivisaran. And any time the chachamim said by the laws of tuma that the skin is like the flesh. Now, here the Chachamim are speaking somewhat cryptically Why did they have to speak cryptically? Because they were speaking euphemistically. Lahavi orshel beis haboshes. Because they were talking, the only other part of the animal's skin that is edible is the vaginal skin. And they didn't want to say that explicitly because it's not a very pleasant thought. So therefore they just said any other part of the animal whose skin is edible. So in all of those cases, chutz lemekomo pasul ve'in bo kares, chutz lizmano pigel v'chayav alav kares. If while you're doing the avoda on this animal, you have a machshava of either chutz lemekomo or chutz lizmano, you've in other words, thinking about either eating or offering the skin, edible skin part, either eating it or actually offering it on the mizbeach. So chutz lizmano or chutz lemakomo, you've pasuled the korban, and if it's chutz lizmano, you're also subject to kares. So that's the conclusion of the brisa. So the Gemara says, what kasha are we bringing from this brisa? Ola in avol zevach lo. It sounds like that this halacha only applies when your intention is to burn the animal completely on the mizbeach, but another kind of korban, like a shlamim, if your intention is to burn the tail skin on the mizbeach, then that's not subject to chutz lizmano and chutz lemakomo. Bishlam ala Rav Huna hainu dekatani ola. That makes very good sense according to Rav Huna, because if you recall, Rav Huna was the one who said that when it comes to a regular korban that's not an ola, that's completely burnt, the skin of the tail does not go on the mizbeach. And that, therefore, it's considered to be a food item that humans consume, not that's meant to be burnt on the altar. And therefore, it makes sense why the brisa says that if your intention is to burn the tail skin, it's only by an ola that you're going to be liable for pigul, not for other karbanos where the tail skin is not meant for the altar. That makes sense. Ela Rav Chisda, my irya detani ola lisni zevach. But according to Rav Chisda, who says that the tail skin is just like the tail itself and is therefore meant for the altar, why does the brisa limit itself only to the case of ola? Talk about all karbanos where the tail is placed on the mizbeach. If a person has a machshava of the tail skin also of chutz lizman and chutz l'makamo, he's contaminated the korban. Why not say by all karbanos? Why just an ola? So Amar l'cha Rav Chisda ibayis ema ba'alya shel gedi. One answer is because maybe the brisa is talking about goats, and in the case of the goat, only for an ola goat do you put the tail on the mizbeach, but like we said before, by other kinds of karbanos like a shlamim, you don't put the tail on the mizbeach, and therefore it's not subject to pigul if my machshav is to put it on the mizbeach chutz lizmano. And v'ibois ema tini zevach, I'll give you another answer. It is talking about all animals, and the word ola is a misprint, or a typo, and you have to substitute the word zevach instead of ola to include all karbanos. And therefore, the brisa is telling you that as long as your machshava is to either put the tail or the skin of the tail on the mizbeach chutz lizman or chutz l'makomo, you have contaminated the korban, regardless of whether it's an ola or a shlamim. That concludes this discussion about the tail and the tail skin. Now let's go on to our next topic.
Why the tail?
Yeah, let it put us in a tailspin, I think. Okay, anyway. Pasul ve'en bo kares v'chulei. So the Mishnah had said that when something is with a machshav of chutz lizmano, it is subject to potentially getting kares if I eat the flesh of that animal. However, if my machshava is chutz l'makomo, then it's never subject to kares. Okay? The question, of course, is where does this distinction come from? And a more fundamental question is where do we get these halachos from that a machshava of chutz lizmano and chutz l'makomo contaminates the animal? So this is now undertaken by the Gemara. Minahani mili, where do we know this from? Omar Shmuel trei kroi ksivi. Maihi. So Shmuel says, because we have two parts of a pasuk that tell me both the law of chutz lizmano and chutz l'makomo. Where is this pasuk? Omar Rabba. So Rabba quotes a pasuk in Parshas Tzav. Now the reason I'm telling you it's Parshas Tzav is because we're going to see another pasuk from a different parsha. So just bear this in mind. Now, if you have the pasuk in front of you, it's very, very helpful. The Torah says, "V'im hey achol yei achel mibisar zevach shalamav bayom hashalishi lo yeratzeh. That if something is eaten from the flesh of the carbon on the third day, which really means that if I'm thinking while I'm doing the avoda of eating the flesh of the carbon on the third day, lo yeratzeh, then the carbon becomes totally pasul. Hamakrivo so lo yechashev lo, that whoever offers it will not get credit for that carbon. Pigul yihiyeh, it is pigul. Vehanefesh ha'ocheles mimenu avonatisa, and whoever eats from that carbon shall bear its sin. Now, bearing sin, as we've explained in the Mishnah, means you get kares. How do we know that bearing sin means that you get kares? Well, we're going to see that in just a moment, okay? Because bearing sin in another place doesn't mean getting kares, but in this context, we'll see that it means getting kares. Now we're going to break down the pasuk to see where we get both the law of chutz lizmano and chutz l'makomo from this pasuk. Omar Rabba, shlishi zeu chutz lizmano. So the word shlishi, that if it is a thought of it is to be eaten on the third day, that refers to a thought of chutz lizmano. Pigul zehu chutz l'makomo. So the word pigul is totally superfluous. So we apply the principle of in eno inyan lazeh to nehu inyan lazeh. If it's not applied to chutz lizmano, then apply it to chutz l'makomo. That's what the word pigul is coming to teach. Vehanefesh ha'ocheles mimenu echad v'lo shnayim. And zehu chutz lizmano. And then the Torah says that the soul that eats from it, not from them in the plural, but it, meaning that only one of the prohibitions that we've just discussed, will get kares. So what that teaches me is that only for chutz lizmano do you get kares, but you do not get kares for chutz l'makomo, which is the other prohibition that was discussed in this pasuk. V'limutei chutz l'makomo, is coming to exclude chutz l'makomo from kares. Frek the Gemara, the natural question, ve'ema v'hanefesh ocheles mimenu ze chutz l'makomo v'limutei chutz lizmano. So the Gemara says, well, how do you know that? How do you see that from the pasuk? Maybe the word mimenu, that you only get kares for one of the aforementioned, means you only get kares for chutz l'makomo, and you don't get kares for chutz lizmano. Just maybe switch it around. So mistavra chutz lizmano odif de pasach bei. It makes more sense to say that kares is being applied to the first prohibition of the pasuk, which is chutz lizmano. But adarabba chutz l'makomo odif de samachle. But I'll say just the opposite. That maybe, since kares is discussed at the end of the pasuk, apply kares to the prohibition that was closest to the end of the pasuk, which is chutz l'makomo. So Ella Amar Abaye, Ki Asa Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi Amar Rav Samich Adetani Tana. So Abaye says we need to modify the answer. I don't accept that the prohibitions of both chutz l'makomo and chutz lizmano are found in that one pasuk in Parshas Tzav, but rather we're going to need two separate psukim. One is for chutz lizmano and one is for chutz l'makomo. We're relying on the following brisa. Kishuhu Omer Shlishi b'Parshas Kedoshim Tiyu. He says there's another time where the Torah discusses eating something chutz with a machshav of chutz, or thinking about eating on the third day. Where is that? That's not in Parshas Tzav, but rather in Parshas Kedoshim. And it says, it's a much shorter pasuk, and it just says, V'im he'achol ye'achel bayom ha'shalishi, pigul hu lo yeratzeh. The Torah says that if something is eaten, or a thought is made of eating something on the third day, it is pigul and it shall not be accepted. So why do you need that pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim if you've already got a Parshas in Tzav that teaches me the laws of pigul? She'ein tamul loymar, sherei kvar nemar v'imachol yachel mibasar zevach shalamav bayom hashlishi. And therefore, im eino inyan l'chutz lizmano, teneu inyan chutz l'makomo. So therefore, if it's not referring, if the pasuk in Kedoshim cannot be referring to chutz lizmano because that's already addressed in Parshas Tzav, it must be addressing chutz l'makomo. And that's the way that Abaye says. We have two different psukim, one in Parshas Tzav, which talks about chutz lizmano, and one in Parshas Kedoshim, which talks about chutz l'makomo. Okay. Umiyet rachmana gabe nosar, ve'ochalav avono yisa, Limaute chutz limakomo. So now the Gemara says something else. Well, how do you know that for chutz lizmano you get kares and for chutz limakomo you don't get kares? Now using these two psukim. So the answer is as follows. In Parshas Kedoshim, in the same parsha that terse pasuk of Pigul is mentioned, there's also a prohibition of nosar mentioned in that same paragraph. What does nosar mean? If I have meat that's meant after I've done the avoda, I'm supposed to place this meat on the mizbeach to burn, and instead I leave it off the mizbeach overnight. So the Torah says that's called nosar. And what's the penalty for nosar if I don't rectify it? Kares. So the penalty of kares is also mentioned in Parshas Kedoshim. But when the Torah mentions the penalty of kares, it says va'ochelav avona yisa limeute chutz limekomo. It says anyone who eats the nosar, shall bear his penalty of kares. And there kares, it says he shall bear his sin. And then it says explicitly, v'nechrasa hanefesh ahi me'ameha, and that soul shall be cut off with kares. Now, since the Torah says specifically anyone who eats it, referring to one prohibition, not referring to the other prohibition of chutz l'makomo, we see from Parshas Kedoshim that the Torah only assigns kares to eating nosar, but does not assign kares to eating something which was tainted with the machshava of chutz l'makomo. And so that's how I know that chutz lizmano in Parshas Tzav gets kares, because it says avonot tisa, you shall bear your sin. And by Parshas Kedoshim, which talks about chutz l'makomo, it's excluded from kares, because in the context of nosar, it says only for nosar do you get eating nosar do you get kares, but not for anything else that's in this parsha. So now the Gemara says ve'ema va'ochalav avono yisa zeu chutz l'makomo v'limute nosar mikares. But 1 second, says the Gemara, the pasuk that says that whoever eats it shall get kares could be referring to either chutz l'makomo or to nosar. How do you say that, it obviously refers to nosar and not to chutz l'makomo? Maybe it refers to chutz l'makomo and not to nosar. So the Gemara says, Mistavra nosar havalei leukme bekares lemigmar avon chutz lizmanu dedami le bezav. So the Gemara gives a very interesting svara, and I just need you to focus on it for just a second. The hold cup. In Parshas Tzav, where the Torah says that if you have a machshav of chutz lizmano, you bear your sin. What did we say bearing sin means? Kares. But it doesn't say kares. It just says you bear your sin. There are other places in the Torah where bearing your sin just means you get malchus. You violated a mitzvah lo saseh. How do we know that avonot tisa refers to kares in Parshas Tzav? Because we are connecting it to the words avonot tisa in Parshas Kedoshim. Now, the question, and there it's a gzeira shava, and because in Parshas Kedoshim it says not only avonot tisa, but that equals kares. Because at the end of the pasuk it says v'nichrasa nefesh ahi me'ameh, that soul shall be cut off. Now, when we're making a gzeira shava and we're not sure which one of these that one of the two psukim in the gzeira shava, we're not sure what it refers to, we should naturally assign it to a mitzvah which is most analogous to the other pasuk in the gzeira shava. So which mitzvah or which halacha is more analogous to chutz lizmano? Would you say nosar is more analogous, or chutz l'makomo is more analogous? So the Gemara says nosar is more analogous to chutz lizmano in two respects. Zav, Zayin Beis, it's an acronym. Zayin is the word zman, because both nosar and chutz lizmano have to do with time, chronology. With chutz lizmano, I'm thinking about eating it at the wrong time. And when it comes to nosar, it was left over to the wrong time. So both of them have to do with a violation of chronology. Whereas chutz l'makomo is a violation of space, not a violation of time. That's one similarity to make chutz lizmano more analogous to nosar, and therefore we assume the pasuk of avonot tisa and kedoshim is talking about nosar. The other similarity is that both the law of chutz lizmano and nosar apply to beis bamos, which is referring to when there's no temple, there were certain periods in history when it was permitted to bring a private korban on an altar. There's no law of chutz l'makomo by bamos, but there is the law of chutz lizmano and nosar by bamos, And therefore, it makes more sense to say that the pasuk of Avonot Tisa in Kedoshim is referring to Nosar, so it's a more analogous connection in the Gzeira Shava to the Avonot Tisa in Parshas Tzav.
There's no law of chutz l'mekoma with Bamas
because the whole thing is chutz l'mekoma. Exactly. Good. Wanted to make sure that someone caught that. Okay. So anyway, Adarabba. So the Gemara says, but I'll make a contrary argument that chutz l'mekamo havalei leukme bekares lemigmar avon lechutz lizmano dedami le b'mikdash. But I could make the opposite argument. I could say that it's more appropriate to say that the pasuk of Avonot Tisa in Parshas Kedoshim, when we make the Gzeira Shava to the law of chutz lizmano, which says Avonot Tisa in Parshas Sav, that pasuk in Kedoshim is referring to chutz l'mekomo, not nosar. Because there are 4 ways where chutz l'mekomo is more analogous to chutz lizmano than nosar is. And the acronym is the word mikdash, mem, kuf, daled, shin. What are those 4 similarities between chutz lizmano and chutz l'mekomo? So mem stands for machshava. They both involve sins of thought, where nosar is nothing to do with thought. Kuf stands for kitzas, which means that even if I think of only about a small portion of the animal being done chutz lizman or chutz l'mekomo, I contaminate the entire animal, which is not true by nosar. In other words, if I leave over only a small portion of the animal not burned, it doesn't taint the rest of the korban. Dalid is dam, that when I'm doing the zrikas hadam, if I have a contaminating thought of chutz lizman or chutz l'mekomo, I contaminate the korban, and nosar has nothing to do with zrikas hadam. And shin, shlishi. And the 4th similarity is both by the pasuk of chutz lizmano in Parshas Sav, and by the pasuk of chutz l'mekomo in Kedoshim, the word bayom hashlishi is mentioned. So you see that they have an analogous scripturally, that they both talk about bayom hashlishi, having in mind to eat it on the 3rd day. So the Gemara says, so I don't like that argument that you're saying, well, it's obvious that the pasuk of Avonot Tisa in Parshas Kedoshim, which talks about kares, must be referring to nosar and excluding chutz l'mekomo, because I could argue just the opposite. Maybe it's talking about chutz l'mekomo and is excluding nosar from kares. So Ella Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Tani Zavdi Bar Levi, Asya Kodesh Kodesh, Ksiv Ki Es Kodesh Hashem Chilel V'nichrasa, U'chesiv Hasam V'sarafta Sanosar Ba'esh Lo Ye'achel Ki Kodeshu, Malahala Noisar, Afkan Nosar. So the real answer is from a different Gzeira Shava. How do I know that the pasuk of Avonot Tisa in Parshas Kedoshim is talking about nosar and not chutz l'mekomo? Because that pasuk also uses the word kodesh. And the word kodesh is the exact word that's used in the context of nosar. And that's how I know, based on the Gzeira Shava, that the word kodesh, kodesh connects it to nosar. It's got nothing to do with its analogousness to chutz lizmano, but rather it's based on the Gzeira Shava that I know that pasuk must be referring to nosar, and therefore only for nosar in the parsha of Kedoshim am I subject to kares, but not for the other halacha in Kedoshim, which is chutz l'mekomo. Okay, I just spoke that out. So now the Gemara says, "Umay chazis dekra aricha b'chutz lizmano ushlishi the parshas Kedoshim tiyu chutz l'mekomo eipachana." So now the Gemara asks another question, using, again, if we're going through this scriptural acrobatics, we just concluded that what? That the long pasuk in Parshas Tzav is referring to chutz lizmano. And the shorter pasuk, which is just a review of what is written in Parshas Kedoshim, which just reviews what was written in Parshas Tzav, we said must be referring to chutz l'mekomo, because in eino inyan lazeh, teneo inyan lazeh. If it can't be referring back to chutz lizmano, it must be referring to something that's closest to it, which is chutz l'mekomo. How do you know? Maybe switch it. Maybe the pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim is talking about chutz lizmano, and the pasuk in Parshas Sav is talking about chutz l'mekomo. And therefore you get kares for chutz l'mekomo, and you don't get kares for chutz lizmano. So the Gemara answers, Mistavra aricha b'chutz lizmano, de gomer avon minosar, de dami lei bezav. So the Gemara says, I'll tell you why. It makes more sense to say that the long pasuk in Parshas Sav is talking about chutz lizmano, because it says avono tisa, which connects it to nosar in Parshas Kedoshim. So therefore, because chutz lizmano is more analogous to nosar than chutz l'mekomo is, it makes more sense to say that the pasuk in Tzav is talking about chutz lizmano, because that pasuk in Tzav is connected with the Gzeira Shava to the pasuk of nosar in Parshas Kedoshim, so it must be referring to chutz lizmano. But adarabba, aricha b'chutz l'mekomo shlishi d'kedoshim tiyu b'chutz lizmano mishum d'dami le samche v'kamemayit le. But I'll give you a counter argument. Maybe I'll tell you that the pasuk in Kedoshim is talking about chutz lizmano, and the reason why it's there is because it's in the same parsha of nosar, and so thematically it makes more sense to put it in the same paragraph as a pasuk that also is talking about chronological crimes. So therefore, I'll argue that the pasuk in Tzav is really talking about chutz l'mekomo. So we're still back to our quandary as how do I know that only for chutz lizmano you get kares and for chutz l'mekomo there is no kares? So Ela Amar Rava Kulu Mikra Aricha Asya. So Rava says, I'm going to go back in my argument with Abaya and hold my ground as to what I said before. That really forget about the pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim. That's not where we're learning the law of chutz l'mekomo. We learn both the law of chutz lizmano and the law of chutz l'mekomo from the long pasuk in Parshas Tzav, which has so much verbiage that we're now going to break it down word for word and tell you each halacha that we get from each word. And let's go through this quickly. Dirsiv he'achol ye'achel. So therefore, the Torah says v'im he'achol ye'achel, that if there is an eating, and which we translated as if there's a thought about eating something on the third day, the korban becomes pasul. Okay? So why does it say he'achol ye'achel, which is a double language of eating? B'shtei achilos ha'kosuv medaber, echad achilas adam ve'echad achilas mizbeach. This means that there's a thought about illicit consumption. So consumption, as we mentioned, means either human eating or being consumed or burned on the mizbeach. And both of those types of thoughts of either eating something at the wrong time or place or consuming something on the mizbeach at the wrong time or place are subject to contamination of chutz lizmanu and chutz l'mekomo. That's the double language of he'achol ye'achel. Mebisar zebach shalamav. And then the Torah says from the meat of the sacrifice of the shlamim. Why is shlamim used as an example? Ma shlamim mifaglim u'mispaglin, avkol mifaglim u'mispaglim. This is to teach you that in order for a korban to be subject to the laws of chutz lizman and chutz l'mekomo, it has to have multiple stages, such that at one stage you could be activating the trigger of your machshava, such that at a later stage you could be doing an act which actually makes the which is contaminated. In other words, like Rashi says, there has to be a trigger and there has to be a remnant after the trigger that is the subject of the Isser. So for example, when I'm doing the avoda with an animal sacrifice, the trigger could be while I'm doing the shchita or while I'm doing the zrika, I have a machshava pesula, right? And then what is the object now that has become contaminated? The meat that I'm either going to be placing on the altar or that I'm going to be eating myself. So there's multiple stages. But that comes to exclude where there's only a one-stage process for the whole korban. There are certain types of menachos where I take the whole flour that is supposed to be offered on the mizbeach and I just throw it on the mizbeach, and that's the whole avoda. There's not multiple stages. There's no remnant after that. And therefore, it's not subject to the laws of pigul, even if I have a disqualifying thought in the process of placing it on the mizbeach. Next, shlishi zechutz lizmano. When the Torah then says, bayom hashlishi, if my thought is to eat it on the third day, past its expiration date, that refers to a thought of chutz lizmano. Lo yerotzeh, it shall not be accepted. That's the next part of the pasuk. Kehartzoas kosher, ken hartzoas pasol. Ma hartzoas kosher ad sheyakriva kol matirav. Af hartzas pasol at sheyakriva kol matirav. That statement tells me that it shall not be desired, meaning that just like Hashem desires a regular korban, so too he shall not desire this korban. What does that mean? It means that at what point does Hashem say, you have consummated the effect of this korban? Only after Zrika Saddam. on a kosher carbon. Similarly, in order to be subject to kares by eating the meat of this animal, you have to consummate the carbon first by doing zrikas hadam. So if, for example, let's say I have a machshava pesula while I'm shechting the animal, I have a machshava of chutz lizmano. I plan to eat the meat of this carbon on the wrong day. And then I do the Kabbalah, and all the blood spills out, and I never actually end up doing zrika. Then if I go ahead and I eat the meat of this animal, then I am not subject to the laws of pigul, because I did not consummate the sacrifice with the zrika sadam. That's what the words lo yeratzeh teach me.
Doesn't matter when you do that eating?
Doesn't matter. That we talked about yesterday. Now, hamakriv, then the next word in the pasuk is hamakriv. He who brings it, right, shall not be, his offering shall not be accepted. Bahakravahu nifsal ve'eno nifsal bashlishi. So what that tells me, that it's only through my disqualifying thought during the avoda does something become pigul. But if, let's say, I have no disqualifying thought, and my thoughts are perfectly good while I'm doing the avoda, and then after the avoda is done, I leave the meat over until the third day in order to eat it, so then I don't get kares for eating that meat, because there was nothing that tainted the carbon while I was doing the avoda. So my contamination must take place while I'm doing the avoda. Just stam leaving over the meat that I was supposed to eat on day 1 or 2, and I leave it over for day 3, that's a prohibition. But it's not something that I get kares for. And that's the word hamakri, that's what that teaches me. And then the word oso in the pasuk. Oso, only the carbon becomes contaminated. Bezevach hakosav medaber ve'eno medaber b'kohen. What that teaches me is that only the carbon itself becomes contaminated to the exclusion of the kohen. You might have thought that if a kohen has a contaminating thought, he's disqualified from doing further service in the Beis HaMikdash. That we do not say. Everyone's entitled to make a mistake, and we'll give you a second chance. And then the words lo yechashev, it shall not be attributed to him. What does that mean? Lo ye'orev bo machshavos acheros. That it's only when the exclusive contaminating thought is pigul is this law subject to kares. But if it's accompanied with other contaminating thoughts or other contaminating factors, then the kares is no longer in place. And we've learned this previously before. Let's say I have a machshava, let's say of both, or let's say I'm not gonna place the carcass on the mizbeach or something like that, or any kind of other contaminating thought that will make the carbon puzzle will remove the stigma of kares from the flesh of the animal. And the word pigul, which is totally superfluous now since we've already established that the pasuk is talking about chutz lizmano, ze chutz limekoma. That tells me that this pasuk not only teaches me about the prohibition of chutz lizmano, but also teaches me about the prohibition of chutz limekoma. And yihiyeh, it shall be, that word teaches me that if I have a machshava pesula of chutz lizmano on a half kazayas of meat of this animal, and then I have another disqualifying thought of chutz limekomo on another half kazayas, then I can conjoin those two half kazasim to make one full kazayas of a disqualifying thought, and therefore the carbon will be puzzle. And then finally, v'hanefesh ha'ocheles mimenu, and therefore the final phrase of the pasuk says, and the soul who eats from it shall bear its sin of kares. So it is only one of the two aforementioned disqualifying thoughts, which refers to what? Echad v'lo shnayim ve'ezeh chutz lizmano degomer avon minoser dedami lei bezav. And therefore, mimenu refers to only, the kares only applies to one of the aforementioned, which must be referring to chutz lizmano and not chutz limekomo, because as we said, since this pasuk is being scripturally connected to the pasuk of Nosar in Parshas Kedoshim, it only makes sense to say that the thing that you get kares for is chutz lizmano, which is more analogous to Nosar because of those two factors of both of them having to do with chronological contamination, and also because they both apply to the law of Bama, whereas chutz limekomo does not apply to Bama. That's it, folks. Wow, how convoluted can you get?